I tell the guys, we're thin but mighty. Anybody that's ever asked about our program over the last few years, I've been saying the same thing. And
Princeton's always been a tough football team. One thing about us is we're going to play tough. We love to hit. Hitting is like preached, and it's like the gospel in Princeton.
I don't want to have all these rules and all these things that you got to try and memorize. Just the word all in. All in.
Football is one of the greatest sports in the world.
It was certainly emotional, no doubt about it. It always is between us and Ocean City.
I don't like losing. The kids don't like losing. And I don't want to lose to the same team over and over and over again. We want to win a state championship.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Cal 101, presented by Olmer's Appliance Service right here on Cape Atlantic Live. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, as we roll on with our 2025 high school football season previews. With me today is Cedar Creek head coach James Melody. Coach, good to talk to you again. Football's right around the corner already, basically mid-June already, so I can only imagine the off-season's been quite a whirlwind, and we're ready to gear back up here as school's about to end, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Nick. It creeps up on you fast, man. It really does. It's a 12-month gig now with this football stuff. So it's been a really good off season, and we're excited to get rolling.
So you guys are coming off an 8-3 season in 2024. Got to the sectional semifinals, tough loss to Delsey, but again, you guys have been a perennial playoff contender and sectional title and state title contender for the last few years as well. So I guess the easy question is, the motivation factor, I'm assuming was there because you have a lot of key guys back, as we'll dive into in a second. But, I guess right after that final game last season, what was the message? Basically it was like a week off. Then it's like, all right, we're going to get right back to work because we know what this takes to accomplish our goals.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is, Nick. It's you take a week or two to digest everything that you went through over the last couple months during the season, and you get right back to work. It's a good thing that the kids have gotten a taste of what it's going to take. They got a taste of failing and losing and not being able to accomplish the goal that we wanted to obviously accomplish. And we got back to work. They've done a really good job up to this point of understanding what we need to do to get done. And it's been a really fun process over the last couple months.
Over the course of that process with the off season, a lot of coaches take a very similar approach when it comes to the weight room. They encourage guys to play multiple sports, of course, but if they're not, they're in the lift, they're doing their lifts either early in the morning or in the afternoon, or however it works out for the schedule. Yeah. But when you guys break down these off-season workouts, I know a lot of coaches like to, get a competition feel when it comes to, building the strength and, building the numbers up and just attacking different things in the weight room. What's your process like with your squad when it comes to, the winter part of the off-season before you get into, all right, we're going to get back on the field in helmets, when it comes to April at that point?
Yeah, I think what we do is I start with, we baseline test. So we essentially max out right away. I want to see where they're at, because I think it's important for the kids to see the improvements that you make when you're really digging into this thing the right way. I take attendance in weight room every day. I post the attendance week by week, so they see exactly what they're doing and how committed they are to it. And I think that's a big thing. Listen, every team is lifting. Every team is working very hard. And I tell my kids that us coaches now, I peek around and I watch what they do, and it's so impressive what every program is doing now. So, in that aspect, we're not doing anything different. But what I challenge my kids to do is to be different. How different can we be by working a little bit harder, by doing a little bit more? And honestly, I want to put my kids in a couple adverse situations in the off season as well. I want to make things really difficult for them from time to time, because let's call it for what it is. Football's not an easy sport. It's not. And you want to put them in as many adverse situations as you can. We do circuits after a long lift. We do certain things in the winter that, make it pretty tough on them. And the committed guys, it's not as hard for them as some of the uncommitted guys when you do those things. But I think making it challenging for them is a huge part of the maturation process for them going forward. Again, every team is doing something. But again, we want to challenge this group to be a little bit different than
Mhm.
prior teams, and maybe a little bit different from teams that we're going to be playing. So
Mhm.
that's the challenge that we put forward to them.
And when you challenge them to be different, have you tweaked some things in the offseason compared to, let's just even say, a few years ago, you guys go 13-0 and, you're one of the best teams in the state. You can't duplicate that every year without maybe modifying some things because it's a whole new class of kids the very next year. Have you found yourself, you and your staff, tweaking some things in the offseason when it comes to, all right, well, maybe we did option A last year to approach these lifts and these benchmark tests. Maybe we go with option B this offseason.
Well, Nick, culture resets every year. You got to reset your culture every year. I think, the foundation of our program and the standards of our program is set, and the kids understand that. But let's call it for what it is. You do get a new group of kids every year. You get a new group of leaders every year. So your culture is setting in that weight room setting, and that's another battle that you have to go through. Kids are stepping into leadership roles. Guys are now in the older group now, they're holding the younger guys accountable, whereas a couple of years ago they were the ones that were being young in that. But every year's different. It is. You got to challenge each team in a different way, and it's not a matter of, all right, we need to go a little bit harder this year, but it is, like you said, it's maybe there's tweaks here and there that we have to do from time to time. But it's my biggest thing with the weight room, Nick, is again, you're forming your team culture. You're making sure that they understand exactly what we need to do and how we're going to do it. They're going to come together. They're going to build that continuity. And I think that's the biggest thing that you gain in the weight room in the off season.
Going from the weight room and back onto the practice field as you get, as you move into the spring, you can throw at least the helmets on and maybe start going some basic install, or kind of getting the kids refreshed when it comes to actually playing the game and, running the offensive and defensive playbooks. Do you see more of these new leaders start to emerge? I know you mentioned a big thing about the culture when it comes from the weight room. Do you see the leaders emerge more so when they're working out and lifting, whether it's 5 a.m. or late at night, or is it more so, okay, now that we've established that, you see the leaders start to emerge when you're actually installing what you want to do on the field, and let's just say in the spring?
It's a process, so it starts there.
Mm.
It definitely starts there. It starts with making sure that they understand that they need to be in the weight room. We need to get stronger. We need to get bigger. We need to do those things. Got to build the continuity together. And then it shifts to the practice field. And then it shifts to the football aspect side of it. And then it shifts to, are we preparing the right way? Are we watching film enough? Are we digging into the installs where there's going to be no indecision whatsoever when we get onto the practice field? So I think it all ties together. It all goes hand in hand. And again, a lot of the seniors now played so much varsity football up to this point that they were thrusted into leadership roles when they were younger. I mean, I can say off the top of my head, French Mambatheo was a captain last year as a junior. Justice Payton was a captain last year as a junior. I believe Amir Dunbar was a captain last year as a junior. So those were guys that were put in leadership roles at a young age. Again, it's not, I'm going to sit here and say it's not new to them. We have other guys that have played a lot of football that are going to be leaders on the field and are going to be vocal leaders, and they're going to be showing young kids how to work at the same time. But, I think I'm in a benefit of that, in that some of them understand how to be leaders.
Did you try to find, I guess, younger players to maybe have these bigger roles early on in your coaching career? Going back to when you started as the head coach, or even during your assistant days, was it a knack to find these young guys, or did it just happen to be a coincidence that some of these young guys, for how talented they are, were ready to play varsity football and, have these leadership type roles, whether they're sophomores or juniors? And now by the time they're seniors, it's like, yeah, they these are seasoned vets at this point of high school football.
Never going to put a kid on the field that I don't feel is physically ready. I was in the benefit, again, especially with this group, because a lot of them started in their sophomore year, and that year we made a run to the sectional final.
Yeah.
I think I want to say there's 6 or 7 of them that are 3-year starters that played significant minutes in that game against Camden in the sectional final. So, I mean, it's I'm in the benefit of this, Nick. I've been able to coach some really good football players, some guys that were capable of handling that at a younger age. But they had their growing pains as well, and they all go through it. I mean, a lot of them had their growing pains their freshman year. I think we were. We weren't the best of football team that year, and they were on the sidelines. They probably thought that they should have been playing at that point, and we didn't think they were ready. But it is such a great thing that a lot of them were able to play at a young age, and now they're I've been able to watch their natural progression over the last couple of years. It's pretty incredible to watch some of the things that they're able to do now in comparison to when they were 14 or 15 years old.
Mm-hmm. We'll dive into some of those players and look more ahead to 2025 in just a second. Step aside, take a quick break. Cal 101 right here on Cape Atlantic Live.
This broadcast is brought to you by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu. Located in Egg Harbor Township, Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is more than just training. Both adults and kids can gain practical skills that give you real confidence, build physical and mental resilience, and you can join a team that's here to help you grow. Featuring no gi, wrestling, and MMA classes. Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is the most dynamic gym in South Jersey. For more information, check out harborjiujitsu.com.
Looking ahead to 2025, and you have a lot of key guys back from last year's squad that, of course, made a nice little playoff run for you guys. And Coach, before we even got on, we were talking about how these how these guys have just developed, and they're practically superstars for your team, and all that experience under their belt. And I'll start with the offense here. Frenchman Bethea, you already alluded to, very talented guy, slotted in as quarterback, wide receiver, can pretty much do it all on offense. And then other guys like Amir Dunbar, Jameer Canfield, and Gian King. I mean, you have it seems like every year you guys have a loaded offense. I mean, I don't know what's in the water over there in Egg Harbor City, but apparently you guys you breed athletic and just freakish offensive talent.
Yeah, I mean, and they shine in big moments. Frenchman was a kid who started 3 games for me at quarterback last year at the beginning of the year. Did a really good job for us too, and then we moved him to wide receiver and became a really big part of what we were doing offensively. So I'm excited for him, whether it is a quarterback or at wide receiver, where he's garnering a lot of interest at the next level. Whatever he does, he's really electric with the football, and he could do a lot of really good things. And I'm excited for him. I truly enjoy working with him. He's a great kid. Amir Dunbar is one of the more physical players I've ever coached. Mm-hmm. He's all 205 pounds right now. I mean, he's had back-to-back 1,300-yard seasons. Just a physical kid that runs downhill. He's so strong, man. He's a violent runner is what I would call him. And he's just getting better. Jameer Canfield, I mean, he played for me as a freshman. And he was the kid last year who came up big in the biggest moments. He had a game-winning touchdown catch against Ocean City. He had 3 or 4 touchdowns in the first round of the playoffs. Had a big touchdown against Delsey as well. He was able to stretch the field. Just a dynamic, electric player. One of the better ones. Better two-way players around. And then Gian had like 6 or 7 touchdowns as a sophomore. He's a burner. He can run. He's slated to be more of a defensive player at the next level, but another kid, just another weapon that we have that's going to make things a little bit difficult. Again, Nick, we talk about it. On paper, I have a lot of guys coming back. We just have to work and get what we're doing, because if we're just the same group coming back, then we're just an 8-3 team. And I tell people that, but we got to continue to work. But these kids have worked really hard up to this point, and I got to be honest with you, Nick, I'm really excited about my offensive line.
Yeah.
Blake Hughes is a kid who started 13 games for me last year, or whatever, how many games he played, 11 games last year. At right tackle, he's back. Caleb Pettiford is my center. He's back. Zach Kamenar is gonna be a kid that I'm really excited about at guard. We have a kid, Slayton D'Amico, who transferred back from St. Augustine.
Mm-hmm.
Started there as a sophomore. That I think he's going to be really good. I think we're going to do some really good things up front. That's going to help with this thing. And it's we just have to continue to work, and we have to continue to grow, and we have to continue to get better. And if we can do that, then I think that we're going to be in a pretty good position as an offense to do some really good things.
When you mentioned your excitement about the offensive line, now I was an undersized offensive lineman, got in the game here and there, but I mean, with the way these guys are building themselves in the offseason at this point, and the continuity for a lot of these high school teams where they have multiple guys that are starting 2-3 years across the offensive line, they're all huge now. What's the continuity like and the camaraderie like with your offensive line? Because everyone wants to call them the big uglies. Some of them will play both ways as well on defense as well. So when you look at your offensive line, how do you measure how they've come together, I guess, since the end of last season and now what they're going to plan on doing here in 2025?
Well, I'm blessed with a really, really good offensive line coach in Mike Lorge, and he's in our building, and he is constantly in their ear, and they're constantly together. And I think that that's the biggest thing that he stresses upon them is, one, being together, being able to communicate, being able to talk, being able to work hard together, and two, becoming a little nasty too, and playing a little bit more physical than we have in the past. And I really like where this group is at right now, and I really like the way that they work. I gotta be honest with you, Nick, they do a lot of the extra stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's people don't talk about offensive linemen much.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing that we have right now, and I really feel good about where they're going and what they're doing, and we're building depth. We got more linemen right now than we've had in the past, and guys that are just getting better, and they're going to get their feet wet, and they're going to continue to work, and I'm really excited about where they can go.
On the defensive side of things, guys like Justin Payton, Jawan McIntosh Ward, and Jason Little racking up tackles, racking up sacks, whatever the case may be. I believe I had Justice Payton had over 100 tackles last season, so he's all over the field. What do you make of your defense coming this fall? It just seems like all these guys are relentless attackers, and that seems to be the MO for your defensive unit over the last couple of years.
Yeah, listen, I'm a head coach with an offensive background, but we make our money at Cedar Creek on the defensive side of the ball. My defensive staff, led by my defensive coordinator, Ryan Flannery, does a great job of preparing these kids week in and week out. And we stress the importance of defense in our program, of swarming to the football, running to the football, relentless pursuit. So it's I think it's 8 or 9 guys back on that side of the ball from really good defense. It's led by Justice Payton. I don't know how many it was. It was definitely over 100, but the game that I think about with him was Holy Spirit. I think he had 18 tackles that game. Juan McIntosh Ward is a kid who put on 15, 20 pounds in the offseason, has worked really hard to continue to grow, has a really high football IQ, and does a really good job. Jason Little was a kid. We didn't know what we were going to get out of him last year. And probably one of our best defensive players, if not the best, honestly. He did all the right things. He's another kid that's relentless. Mason Beck is a defensive lineman, played nose tackle for us. He's 6'2", 90 pounds. Just a big kid that moves really well, athletic. And Nick, I mean, my whole defensive backfield is slated to play Division I football in it. French Bethea, Jameer Canfield, Gian King, Ryan Stanton is a kid that's going to step in and do some really good things for us. We have a couple of young kids that are going to play, and a couple other guys that we're going to sprinkle in and again get their feet wet. We're very multiple in what we can do. We try to use as many bodies as possible. If you're going to give effort, and if you're going to have relentless pursuit like we talked about, you're going to be able to play on the football field. And, I'm excited about what this group can do on both sides of the ball.
I'm always curious about a guy like you just brought up, Jason Little, where you said last year, we don't know what we're going to get out of him. So we're just going to throw him out there, see what happens. Is that essentially what you do? Or do you kind of say, all right, maybe this is the role we see him having, maybe it's a hybrid role, or it's he's going to sub in and out, and then he turns into something. What is that whole process like when you have a kid like that who you just said is arguably your best defensive player, where just last year or whenever it was like, yeah, we don't know what we have yet, so we'll have to wait and see.
What we try our best to do on both sides of the ball is we try to put what we feel is our best 11 on the board, and we try to make that puzzle piece work. And Jason was a kid that, I'll be honest with you, he's probably 185 pounds. Probably a little bit undersized to put his hand on the ground, but he's tough enough to do it. He was physical enough to do it, and he's obviously capable of standing up. I want to say in the Ocean City game and the Triton game, he was an outside linebacker standing up, and he might have caught an interception or two at the same time. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I know that he was playing some outside backer too. He's versatile in what he can do. If we're in an odd front, he can be a stand-up outside backer. If we're in an even front, he can shift down and be a defensive end. But very multiple in what he can do. And Amir Dunbar kind of fits that mold, fits that role the same way. Both guys wouldn't, look like, they're not your typical 240-pound defensive lineman, but they're tough enough, they're strong enough to go against some of those guys. And in turn, they become really fast first-level guys when they do that, and they become really disruptive. So you're always going to get those guys, Nick, that you go through the summer, kids working really hard. Everyone's talking about him. Like, is this going to be a guy? Well, let's try to figure it out. That's our job as coaches. Our job as coaches is to find roles for these kids to figure out. And their job as players is to accept those roles and get really good at them. And that's what a team does. That's the winning recipe is, coaches figuring out ways to get these guys on the field and players accepting that role and getting really good at it and digging into it. So,
speaking of that winning recipe, as far as your schedule is concerned this year, I don't know if it's out there yet, or I was scanning for it too. Is it pretty much the same schedule as last year, just flipped, or do you have any other scheduling tidbits this year? Like, are you guys going Battle at the Beach this year, or any other showcase event the first week?
Yeah, we're playing in the Battle. We're playing Old Bridge, a Group 5 school in Middlesex County. I want to say they went 8-3 last year. They returned, almost their whole team. So it's going to be a really good test for us to be able to go and play them. We're playing at Rowan, and then we get through our schedule. Our division is the same, highly competitive group of teams that we're excited to go against.
Without a doubt. So I'll leave you here with this one. Again, I appreciate your time today. Looking ahead to the season, a lot of programs have a motto, a phrase, or just something that it's bulletin board material in a positive way. It's on the top of top door of the locker room, or coming out to the field. Do you guys have a motto or phrase that you use every year? Is there a new one this year? What really sticks out? How to sum up this team here in 2025?
We're trying to mix it up almost every year. Just try to get. And it's trying to fit that culture. Something that we've said, from the start is leave no doubt. We want to leave no doubt in everything that we're doing. Again, we're talking about, being different and all that stuff. How are we going to get better? And if there's going to be days where you walk away and you ask yourself, did I work hard enough? Did I do enough for the person next to me? Did I do enough for myself to get better? We're doing the wrong thing. So just leave no doubt. Leave no doubt. Make sure we do the right things. And we have one goal. It's we don't break this thing down into anything specific. We don't say we want to go in and beat one specific or two specific teams. We don't go in and say we want to win a division. We want to win a state title. We want to win a state title, and that's what it is. And we break it down into those little pockets of games each week, and you try to be 1-0 each week. And if we work really hard, we leave no doubt. We're going to put ourselves in a pretty good position at the end of the year to do some really good things. So. It's a process, Nick. It's a long one, and we're really, really excited about what this group can do if we do this thing the right way.
Well, we're only 2.5 months away from the start of the season, and I have no doubt, to borrow your phrase, that while you guys may be different, I'm sure you guys are going to be highly competitive once again under you and your staff's watch. So, Coach, appreciate your time tonight, and I will say, good luck this year. I'm looking forward to watching you guys on the field again, and hopefully we'll talk again. Maybe you're celebrating a 2025 state championship up at Rutgers University.
Hopefully, man. Nick, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. James Melly of Cedar Creek with me here on Cal One-on-One, presented by Omer's Appliance Service. Be sure to check out the rest of our podcasts and content on Cape Atlantic Live on YouTube. We'll see you next time.